मेरी मानिए तो IDFC फर्स्ट बैंक के सेविंग्स अकाउंट इंडिया की बेस्ट सेविंग्स अकाउंट में पूछे क्यों? क्योंकि ये देते हैं सही इंटरेस्ट रेट, वो भी क्वार्टरली नहीं बल्कि हर महीने। सिर्फ यही नहीं, IMPS, डेबिट कार्ड और चेकबुक पे नो चार्जेस। यानी आप इंटरेस्ट पे कमाते हैं इससे और चार्जेस में बचाते हैं इससे। यही तो है इनकी ऑलवेज यू फर्स्ट और सच। मैं जुड़ चुका है इनके साथ, आप भी जुड़ जाएंगे। IDFC फर्स्ट बैंक, ऑलवेज यू फर्स्ट। कभी आपने सोचा है?
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 8th edition of the only startup award in India that truly matters, the Economic Times Startup Awards 2022. Now I know. Hello, Shivku, how are you? I know what all of you are thinking. You were here just a few months ago to celebrate the best startup of 2021, and you're back here in the same calendar year to celebrate the best startups of 2022. Now, what can I say? It's that kind of year. First, revenge shopping. Then we had revenge travel. Now clearly we have revenge startupping. Now let's quickly take a stock of what's happened since the last time we met. Two celebrated geniuses have been in the news. One man thought he would set a little blue bird free. It turned out the bird was correct, except he was a bit cuckoo himself. Usually we'd ask you to tweet about the ET Startup Awards, use the hashtag ET Startup Awards, but who knows, will Twitter be there tomorrow morning or not? Anybody here in the sanitary ware industry? Let that sink in. Then we had a crypto pro who went from nothing to 32 billion. Hello, Nandan, how are you? From 32 billion in valuation. You're not the crypto bro. He went from nothing to 32 billion to nothing again. Now, think about it. Now, everybody thought a guy with literally the word bank in his name. He's a bank man. What can go wrong? But they also forgot that he has fried in his name. So bank got fried. So moral of the story, a bird that had to get freed got fried. And sometimes you cannot bank on certain men to look after your virtual assets. Okay, enough puns you're saying? Enough puns? Enough Dogla puns also? Alright, let's get on with our show today. As always, we have the best and brightest of the Indian startup ecosystem, along with some of our best and brightest politicians are on their way. They'll be here soon. But first, a big thank you to our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, IDFC First Bank. Hello, Mr. Vedinathan, how are you? Our hospitality partner, the Leela Palace Bengaluru, knowledge partner Traction, telecast partner ET Now. If you'd like to go social with today's awards, like I said, we don't know about Twitter, but go social anyway. It's hashtag ET Startup Awards. And if your friends were not lucky enough to be invited here today, tell them that we're also streaming live on ET Now and our website, etstartupawards.com. Now, startups need ideas, passion, risk-taking and capital, but they also need a stable country and a government that wants them to succeed. We are going to soon have all that in the room today. We have the startup founders already. We will soon be joined by Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw, Union Minister for Railways, Communications, Electronics and IT, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Union Minister for Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, and of course Mr. Basavaraj Bommai, Chief Minister of Karnataka. They will be here soon. Right. A quick word of thanks to our jury as well. This year's jury was Salil Parekh, Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Shailendra Singh, Arundhati Bhattacharya, Sriharsha Majeti, Girish Mathrabootham, Satyen Gajwani, Hemant Taneja, Lizzie Chaplin, and Sahil Barua. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for doing a tough job of picking this year's ET Startup Award winners. Now, thank you. The ET Startup Awards recognize excellence in 9 categories. But before I tell you what those categories are, I'm going to invite Samida Sharma, Editor Startups and Emerging Business, The Economic Times, onto stage to moderate this evening's panel discussion. Samida, can we have you on stage? May I also invite our panelists, Smita Deora, co-founder Lead. Smita, can we have you on stage? Sumer Juneja, Managing Partner, India and EMA, SoftBank. Harsh Jain, co-founder Dream 11 Sports. Kalyan Krishnamurthy, CEO of Flipkart Group. And of course, Nitin Kamath, founder and CEO of Zero. The amount of net worth on this stage is staggering right now. Alright, today's panel discussion is titled The Great Reset, Tracking the Growth versus Profitability Conundrum Amidst the Tech Winter. Samida, over to you.
Check. Hi. Thanks Thanks, Suresh. Thanks everyone for joining us here today at the 8th edition of the Economic Times Startup Awards. It's been a unique year. We're obviously, like Suresh mentioned, meeting for the second time around. Nitin is a constant. He was there in March and we were early signs of what is now being called the tech window was around the corner. VCs were circulating cautionary notes. 6 months down the line, obviously a lot has changed and very rapidly. We don't have too much time, so I'm going to jump in. We're talking about how this whole reset is going to play out. We're going to weigh in on things like profitability over growth. And we have a very varied set of folks here. I want to start off with Smita. Smita, you are in a sector which has obviously seen a lot of turmoil. It gained from the COVID bump up, and EdTech obviously was actually one of the first ones in India to see a lot of layoffs, reset of businesses. Tell us a little about what is internally right now your memo to your employees, your team. As you know, this must be one of the first downturns that they would have faced. What are you telling them?
See, pre-COVID, the education sector was largely seen as institutions and schools imparting education, and then we had all these technology players who were directly talking to students and learners who were older in age group. Whether it was test prep or higher education. I think the exuberance which always surprised me during COVID was the same was getting reapplied to much younger students, which was just, if you speak to any parent, I think it just defies how learning happens for young children, where it needs to happen in a physical environment in a school. Technology, hence, for this age group always needs to belong in the hand of the teachers versus direct to students. So I think some of what we saw was a lot of money going towards K-12, B2C, EdTech, which I always believed was a swing up. It had to come, it had to come down once schools reopened, and that's what we're seeing. For us, the internal memo to answer your question is we are actually in great times now because we have always believed in giving technology to teachers and working in schools. COVID was tough for us because schools were shut. Our internal memo is this is the time when we go out and...
But you've done a bit of rationalizing, right? I hear there's been layoffs, etc. at LEAD as well.
See, every organization goes through performance, performance appraisals and goes through sometimes some amount of restructuring because you automate things. In a large 2,000 member, size organization, we had some 80-90 people who left through the performance cycle. That's all that's happened. But at that point of time, media was all about layoffs, so they just wanted to
we don't talk about the media today. Today is all about you guys. So just shifting focus a little bit, I want to come to, like I said, very varied panel. So two profitable companies, one 15-year-old company which is still making losses, but Kalyan obviously says that he's investing and therefore there's a reason for that. And obviously we have an investor who will bring a different lens to the conversation. But Harsh, I want you to talk a little about, how this entire reset works for someone like you, which is profitable but has raised money. There is valuation pressure. How do you kind of balance this whole growth and profitability? Because a lot of founders are telling me today they're fine clocking 20% growth and would rather do that consistently and be profitable. How does that impact your valuation and overall, what investors think about it?
Yeah, thanks, Abhida. So, look, I think we were already profitable before. We've been profitable for a few years, so it's not something new that we're trying to do a flip over and find out. I don't think profitability and growth should be two sides of a coin, right? There are ways to grow profitably as well. And I think that's what we're focusing on. I think the problem happens when you try to hyper grow, when your unit economics are not in place, when you're hoping that You raise money today, burn through it, hyper burn through it in 12 months, sometimes lesser, and you feel like, oh, it'll be easy to raise money after that again. I think the minute you have companies that try to raise money with an 18-month runway, which can be reduced to 12 months if it's going well, or extended to 24 months, at the end of which you're profitable, or you at least break even. I think that whole mindset is now coming into India, and we're going to see a lot more companies with that mindset growing today. We need to have that 2008 kind of mindset, where you can't count on funding 6 months, 12 months down the line. You have to build. I mean, we're not the ones like that are private companies like us are actually, we're not Section 8 companies. So we can't be not profitable for forever.
But tell me, how does all of that impact your prospect of tapping the public market, if at all? I don't know, you've never really spoken about it very seriously, but do you think you're kind of then you would be an equally successful public company with that mindset?
I hope so. I don't think the fundamentals should change if you're private or public, right? Your unit economics, your thoughtfulness in growing responsibly, being self-sustainable, these are things with high corporate governance. These are things you should have even if you're private or public. I think the only thing that we would look at going public if you're solving a problem that exists by going public. I don't think I would ever want to go public just for fanfare or because the market's hot or, that's not a reason to go public for us.
Kalyan, what's your point of view? I mean, were you expecting, you also gained from the whole digital, sort of the bull market of COVID. You did a lot of M&A. You expanded in a lot of new sectors. Did you anticipate this kind of a downturn happening? I mean, you've actually been talking about it for a while. You also, I hear, had a freeze on hiring about 6 months before everyone sort of started laying off. Did you anticipate this, or would you have sort of done it a little differently in 2021?
Yeah, we absolutely anticipated this. I think just to pick on what Harsh also said, in 2001, companies saw a spike in valuation of, 2x to 6x, with some underlying assumptions for the next 2 to 3 years. I think very quickly it was clear that those assumptions are not going to play out, right? Growth assumptions, profitability assumptions, it was very, very clear. So 6-8 months into this year, it was so clear that there is going to be a reversal of all of that. Or people were smart enough or savvy enough to raise enough money last year that they don't go to the market and actually grow into those financials.
That never happens, no?
95% of the times it will not happen. I think there will be a couple of situations where it can happen. So yeah, this is going to be a tough next year. I think a lot of people probably hit the market, is my estimate, maybe between April to June next year.
In the funding market.
The funding market to raise money, and that's probably the moment of truth for all of us in the ecosystem.
What do you expect? Will there be a lot of them which will find themselves to be overvalued and therefore will have to go for a down round?
Yeah. But then there is some more creativity in the funding market. I think what people do is there is this new So you see, all of us have been in this market for several years, and in my previous career, on the last 15 years, this structure was kind of not very common, the convertible structure, where you actually can raise money without pricing around. So I do believe
that doesn't really help, right, Nitin? I mean, what's your view? Saving your valuation for a later discovery. I mean, how does that work?
No, I think when you're pushed to the edge, you will do whatever it takes. Right? As in, entrepreneurs are all fighters, so we're gonna fight it out. So yeah, I think right now, I think entrepreneurs have to do what is right for the business, and if it means convertible rounds, so be it.
But I mean, you obviously have never raised any external capital. You're bootstrapped till today. You're highly profitable. You also have a view from the public markets standpoint, and I remember 6 months back when we were on stage, you did point out that this will be a longish kind of slow period. We weren't very clear. It's actually, I think in India it's still sort of, we're lagging behind US, and I'll come to Sumer to get a little bit of the view from the West. But how do you evaluate a situation like this? Do you actually think it is advisable for companies to just take a valuation which is say 20 or 30% lower, raise, and then sort of build for the next 2 to 3 years heads down, or keep saving their valuation through what Kalyan just mentioned, creative ways of fundraising?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm really qualified to talk about this, but yeah.
I think you can talk more freely about this than anyone else.
Yeah. So see, the thing is, I think the little bit of bearishness I felt, in March, April was because we had seen, a few IPOs not do well, and in the public markets, the memories last much longer than in the private markets, So, and unless a few companies come make money, it was hard to see how a lot of new startups could come raise money from the public market, and the problem with, I think, with the startup ecosystem is that everyone's looking at public market as an exit, but really it's an entry, right? As in you're getting a retail investor who can take the least risk on your cap table, so you should kind of leave some value on the table for that, right? And that, if you look at the last few years, not just in India, across the world, everyone was looking at public market as an exit, and it felt like we hit the top where I don't think more public investors would get swayed by that. So that's how it felt that we'll probably not have too many IPOs in the future. In terms of if I was in the shoes where if say the next 12 to 18 months is all that I may have, and I need to survive, I think I'll do whatever it takes. I think the idea is to this whole, I think one of the best things about Zerodha is that every time I sleep, I know there's almost like a 14-15 year runway in my head. That's how much money is in the business. So I know that even if I go, even if business goes to trouble 3-4 years, we're going to be all right. And I think that freedom of knowing that you can get through 3, 4, 5 years is amazing for a founder. So I think the founder should do whatever it allows the business to grow as well. So I think founders have to do whatever it does to raise enough money, and have the cushion. And I think there's, in the startup ecosystem, there's no doubt there's a lot of load, and those hard decisions, the earlier you take, I think it's better for the business.
So when you're the lone investor, so you have to answer for a lot of your brethren. But tell me, SoftBank, obviously I don't even want to get into the kind of stuff that's happened in US tech, even in Europe, and you're kind of now shuttling between London and India. Tell me what, you've also just come back from Milken, so you have a view what people are talking about, in terms of macros, etc. What do you make of the market? Is there actually a reset, or we're still 6 to 8 months? Kalyan says April is when the reckoning.
So I think there are two things, both globally and India, which we have to recognize, especially for tech. COVID gave us a glimpse of what tech adoption will look like in fast-forward pace. But I think when the world opened up, we all realized, whether it be shopping, whether it be food delivery, whether it be ed tech, old habits die hard. I think that's where we will eventually get to. But I think like what Harsh was saying is we can't fast forward that, and we should be sensible about it. Second, if you see from the global financial crisis, we've had 0% of very low interest rates. So the cost of capital and the money floating around in the world, especially in growth equity, has been enormous. And so the bar to invest, the bar to do diligence, the pace of investment has been very free. And I don't blame the entrepreneurs for taking advantage of that. If someone's giving you a value, why wouldn't you take it? What's going to change now is you have come back to pre-COVID. So growths have to be tempered down. Interest rates have gone up substantially. Cost of capital has gone up substantially. This will go into all our models. And therefore the valuations have to be reset. They've reset dramatically in the public markets in India and tech and in the US. And that has to follow through on to the private markets. I think 23 is going to be tough. I think the companies